Hello YouTube, long time no see. I took a hiatus basically because I was writing a book and needed all my bandwidth to figure out what I was going to do with that. But for reasons that may become clear in this video, I have much more bandwidth now. So I'm going to be doing a lot of content production in the name of promoting that book and just because I really enjoy it. Today I want to talk about what I thought could have been a drug-induced schizophrenic break. At least that's what I thought it was at first, and for a little while after, it actually happened. I was at a music festival this summer of 2024, an EDM music festival, and took a ton of ketamine. And I was overcome at one point watching the set with like this overwhelming, immense feeling of gratitude and a sudden, just permeating realization that we are, as human beings and as an earth as a whole, one entity or of one thing, just fractured into different parts. So that was the feeling that I had, and that was overwhelming as well. And I just had this amazing surge of gratitude like I'd never felt before, and just comfort in life and everything, and just this beauty of it. And basically what happened was, in that moment of gratitude, I was just like, I'm ready for the answers. I want to know, like, tell me, and just tell me what's going on. And I was hit with like what felt like just a giant beam of just energy and knowledge and thoughts. It was so overwhelming. The person who had their hand on my shoulder collapsed to the ground, and I was just I was just motionless. I couldn't even move. I was just staring there, like completely catatonic. And like the next thing I knew, there was like a bunch of security and like medical people around us because he'd collapsed onto the ground, and they were trying to figure out what was going on there. But I didn't even like, I couldn't even like think about that or notice that. I was just having this insane realization that I kind of felt like I had lived the journey that I was on many, many times, as far as like, not necessarily, I'm a T10 paraplegic. If you're new here, I'm in a wheelchair. I was in a car accident in 2019. And since then, I've experienced just a remarkable amount of personal suffering. And since I was young, since I was probably about 10 years old or even younger than that, I have just endured an incredible amount of like self-inflicted and external, just anxious suffering. And I had this sense in that moment, sitting at this music festival, that I had failed to learn some sort of lesson in like a bunch of previous lifetimes, or at least a few previous lifetimes, and that I would have to continue trying to learn this lesson over and over again in future lifetimes. And like, I hadn't even thought about my personal opinion on whether or not past or future lifetimes exist. I am just relaying exactly how it felt in that moment, and it was just so intense. It was so intense. And then all of a sudden, it was just like reality fractured. My perception of what was or wasn't real disappeared completely, and I didn't know if I was in a simulation. I didn't know if I was in my own mind and everything was just being created, and like everything, the world was all my imagination. I didn't know if like I was basically the only person in this world, and everything else was just projection. Like a serious schizophrenic break. I mean, absolutely no concept of what was or wasn't real. At one point later on at the music festival, I couldn't. I thought that I was being in this like extreme ketamine, schizophrenic, whatever it was, state. I thought that I perhaps was a being that had lived at this music festival forever, and everything else that had ever happened was just my imagination. And the reason that it was that way was because I think that's why I was at the music festival taking all these drugs, is that was inducing my imagination of the whole rest of my life. And I would just go and like Men in Black, like I would leave the music festival and then like Men in Black, my memory would be erased and I would start over again. I had lived this cycle over and over. It was horrifying, absolutely horrifying, super interesting, but at the same time, very scary to just anything I thought of could suddenly become like a potentiality or real. So fast forward a little bit, get home from the music festival, had, decided to take an overwhelmingly positive stance on whatever the hell was happening. And in this hyper perceptive state where everything was like easily perceived as real, because reality had fractured in such an extreme way that I was just able to, kind of more objectively, look at ideas because I had no resistance to what was or wasn't real. I had no idea what was going on. And in that period of time, I just did a immense dive into all things, reality, quantum physics, spirituality, religion, anything I could basically ingest on YouTube or read about all of the theoretical things that people have come up with to simulation theory to explain reality and our perception of it, and all of these other drug experiences and psychological breaks that people had had. And what I actually came to the conclusion of was that this whole event was made possible in my mind by the fact that I had just resisted my own truth so ferociously in life because I was just afraid of other people's judgment, and I just lived in this permanent cycle of guilt and shame and, yeah, just kind of a non-reality. I was just so preoccupied with wanting to be whatever the person looking at me wanted me to be. I just wanted to be liked so badly. I wanted to be loved so badly. And I wanted to, I couldn't find happiness in my own self. So I just wanted to make other people happy. And the way that unconsciously I didn't even know I was doing this or never realized I was doing it, the way I had unconsciously decided to do that was just to, be whoever the person I was with wanted me to be. And anyways, long story short is this sent me on kind of a deep search for meaning. And in that search for meaning, I discovered holotropic and different types, just all sorts of different types of breath work and breathing exercises. And then I started to have these major emotional breakthroughs. I realized that there was this almost, a part of myself, whatever you want to call it, like the Jung would call it, the shadow self, but the part of yourself that you want to hide from everybody. And I had this part of myself from childhood that was just, I had imprisoned it. I just locked it down, and anything I thought was unacceptable or shameful or guilty about, I just put it in there, in this prison. And that part of me was just terrified, just filled with absolute terror and fear and anxiety. And it was like almost, when I was having the, visual of it when I was doing breath work, it was like this scared child just shaking in the dark that had been tortured and just hated for so long. And it was really intense. It was a really powerful breathwork session where I saw that I had rejected part of myself for so long and hated part of myself for so long that it had really fractured me into different pieces. And in that, I, was able to just objectively look at my life and see that this was the root of living in repeated cycles where I would just end up, getting a little ways along a goal or a path, and then I would just stray. I would just go for money or for status or for something, and I would, whatever career I'd chosen at the time, I would give everything to it, and it was going to be my life forever. I was going to be rich from it, and I would get a certain ways along, and because it was totally out of alignment with what all of me really wanted, I would inevitably just press the self-destruct button. And so I'd never fully, analyzed this pattern. And once I saw the pattern, it became so clear that the path to breaking it was just fully and totally owning myself, all the things that I had put in this prison deep inside me, the things I have deep shame about. I spent a lot of my life deeply addicted to drugs, deeply just doing all sorts of stuff that the product of many things ended in shame. The product of a lot of my actions ended in shame. The point is I realized that owning all that and just owning a lot of other things that will become apparent in the coming weeks and months as I get this book put out, as I start a podcast, as I make more of these videos, I just had a lot of shame that I was holding on to so tightly. And the process that I've chosen for getting this all out there is just putting it in a book. And that was a kind of a selfish thing that I wanted to do. But as time went along and as I worked on this book more, I realized that, I don't read books because I want to understand everything about, a particular person, unless there's someone I'm really interested in or look up to, but I'm like an unknown. No one knows who I am. A very few people know who I am. But I wanted to really put something out there in the world that had value, that helped people like me or in similar situations to me where they feel trapped in cycles and can't break out of them. I wanted to write something that could, be semi-widely read and bring value to people in many different walks of life and many different circumstances. And I realized that the only thing that I've really kind of conquered or figured out in a way that I can explain through the lens of some stories that I'm going to tell in the book is this process that I used to, completely break the emotional attachment to events and things that happened in childhood and, codependency on other people, all of these things that were, completely kind of reversing the cycle of energy in my body, where as I believe that everything should kind of flow up and out, where at the bottom of the kind of like chakra or energy centers or things in your body, you have shame and guilt, and at the top you have gratitude, and everything needs to be flowing that way. But when I had this just black hole of shame, it was like everything was coming in inverse and I was just perceiving everything backwards. And I think through the lens of my own story and with some strategies and thought exercises and everything that helped me break this, I actually think that I do have something that can provide value to a lot of people. And I'm really, really excited to share it and to unearth it, and then also to just go head on into this journey of really owning what I want to do in life. And what I want to do in life is alleviate suffering, emotional suffering from as many people as possible by taking the time to understand them, understand their story, and in whatever ways I can facilitate. My first way of facilitating that is going to be getting certified in a bunch of different breath work and like free dive breath work training, and start doing retreats and classes and workshops and all sorts of experiences related to breath work, because I think that's the single most powerful way to move the needle. It's done more for me than anything else by a long shot. And so that's going to be my first step, is doing these, becoming a breathwork practitioner, and kind of evangelizing breath work to whoever is interested. And then also I want to start doing or start eventually, as if you've been a follower of the channel for a while, my long-term goal is to build kind of a health retreat, an all-around healing center, a small healing center where I can hold events and people can rent it out, kind of like Airbnb, for groups of people, for whatever they are, health influencers, or whoever the heck wants to, house 20 or 30 people and have access to like a bunch of esoteric, like infrared sauna and whatever cool gadgets I can find. Hyperbaric oxygen chambers, red light therapy, just a bunch of healing modalities that are kind of technology and science-based, and then also have access to the nature and just, powerful natural healing and good food and all of the basic stuff. So that's my long-term goal, and I'm actually going to, rather than just try a bunch of different careers where I can earn money and build a place in the wild where I can hang out with people, like-minded people, doing the things I love, I'm just going to go on my actual path, which is just directly towards that, rather than the zigzag nightmare that I've been on forever of strange cycles. So yeah, that's what, in a nutshell, a summary of why I want to publish this book and kind of what is going to be in it. I'll be doing some, as I get the final form of this manuscript put together and decide definitively on the intro of, the first chapter. I've got a couple different potential ones that I've written, but as I decide definitively on all that in the next couple weeks, I'll definitely, read some excerpts from the book itself, and will be just, aggressively trying to put myself out there, market myself, find the people who think like I do or are interested in, whatever thing I've got going on at the time, and just aggressively, create content and create things that I hope can bring value to people, because there's no other way. There's no other leverage that you can get in the modern world. Everyone is just spending all their time on these things. I'm pointing at my phone. And so if I'm not inside of it, then yeah, there's no way of spreading your ideas, spreading your things. And it was so intimidating before, but that was all born out of a completely reversed energy field of shame and just self-doubt, self-hatred, and total lack of self-love from having this part, this shadow side of myself, as Carl Jung would call it, where I had completely rejected, tortured, and punished them. My self-talk was so incredibly horrible. When I realized that the way that I was speaking to myself, like I wouldn't speak that way to my worst enemy, it was so jarring to think that you would, treat your own self like that and then expect to be able to go out in the world and, treat others with the reverence that they deserve. So that's it for my first YouTube video in a while. I will catch you soon. Please go check out my Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter. All of them are Bridger Lee Frederick, or my Twitter's Bridger222. Really trying to, gain some traction on social media and YouTube and everything. YouTube, thank you so much. You've been great. A couple of my videos have started to get a little more traction and more views, and so I'm just going to keep it up. I'm going to start a podcast, everything soon, so that when I do either self-publish this book, I'll have a way to get it out there. And I would really like, just because I love the experience of it and to work with professional editors and everything, I just think it'd be really cool to get a publishing deal of some sort. So also greatly appreciated if you can like and follow and share in any way that you can, so that I have, something to bring to the table at a, to a literary agent or, a publisher or anything like that. So much love. I appreciate the hell out of you making it this far into the video if you did. And you'll be seeing more of me if you want to stick around. Please like, subscribe, and check out the channel. Bye-bye.